Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. The United Nations population report is out and it has revealed that there are as many as 60 countries that have peaked in population, including Japan, Italy and Russia. China will end up peaking in 2021, which means that the number of people who are above the age of 64 reaching the age of retirement will be much more than the working age population, which is between the age of 20 and 64 years. Much of it has got to do with the declining replacement rate and the increasing life expectancy in all the countries. By the year 2021, the world fertility rate will have dropped to 1.83. India, with the world's largest population, currently has the replacement rate of 2.1. At 1.7 billion, the population in India will peak by 2062. India has an inherent advantage of having the largest number of working population, which far surpasses the old population. The working age population in the country is between 20 and 64 years, which surpasses the population which is beyond 64 years, well through 2062. This demographic dividend that India enjoys over the countries in the West, in Europe, even in Southeast Asia, up until the next 40 years, the point is, how do we expedite and move faster to capitalize on this opportunity? How do we accelerate our growth to become a top economy? What has already been done and what needs to be done to accomplish the dream of Viksit Bharat at 2047. Let's start this conversation. Joining me on the telecast is Avinash Mishra. He's the former advisor, Niti Aayog. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's quickly start with the numbers. The statistics that paint a picture obviously showcase the divide between the countries that have already saturated, who have already reached their peaks when it talks to population. In terms of population, China, which is going to be peaking by 2100. How does India differentiate itself in the numbers that have been provided in the UN population report?
I think the numbers what has been given, I believe that we must really acknowledge them. The reason being because you see we are still developing and will stabilize after some time. As you know, all the developed countries like Europe and all, they are stabilized in terms of population, not rather stabilized, but rather it's falling trend. So we are likely to be by 2062. And I believe that by that time, there would be scientific advancement and all. So the working age which we today counts from 18 to 62 will perhaps be stepped up to further because of the all supports of gadgets, all supports of development process, artificial intelligence and so. And also the learning will continue. So keeping this in view, I believe by 2062, we will be actually settling. And by the time our population will be very close to 160 crore, or you can say.
Fair enough. So how do we comprehend this, Dr. Ajay Dua, talking about our infrastructure, which has been growing at an exponential rate, our health facilities, the policies, the schemes that have been launched by the government, whether it is the education sector and the health sector. Now, these three components that the United Nations report has put out for countries like India, which are growing at an exponential rate. They have about a period of 40 to 42 years to grow, and it is going to be saturated by 2062. How do we capitalize maximum with a fast growth rate to reach the level that is going to be then comparable to the other countries, the other economies?
Thank you very much first for having me on the show. I'm not so sure whether for a country like India, the growth which is anticipated even till 2062 is really a positive thing. Because as of now, even at 1.43 billion, I think we are overpopulated.
Okay, okay, but talking about overpopulation, and there what lies, if I could call it a disadvantage or an edge, you take a look at it and you can see either the glass is half empty or full. How can India utilize this particular differentiation that the United Nations at this point of time has marked in its report to its advantage? Okay, there seems to be a problem with the connection with Dr. Ajit Dua. I'll come back to him. Coming back to you then, Jayjit Bhattacharya, how does this fare in the terms of economics for the country?
Why do we get excited about demographic dividend is because when these children who go from 18 to 24 and above, they start earning. When they start earning, they buy a house, they buy curtains, they buy cars, and they buy all kinds of consumables, television, phones, and so on and so forth. That leads to increase in consumption, that leads to market, and therefore that leads to economic growth. So that's essentially the principle. So as an economist, one will be getting very excited if you have demographic dividend and if you've got a younger population because they will consume more. Having said that, for a proper demographic dividend, we also need to have trained manpower. So if our manpower is not trained, pretty soon in the next 10, 15 years time, if the only value they're bringing to the economy is the muscle power, that's going to get replaced by machines. Be it robotics, be it AI, be it all kinds of machines that will be replacing them. So we really don't need sheer muscle power in the economy per se. And therefore, also the second question that comes in is that what do we mean by prosperity? Is the top line of the GDP really the means and the metrics for prosperity? The point is that the more number of people there will be more consumption of resources, and that's the only way that the GDP grows, right? So an economist will continue to be happy because there is more consumption happening, there's more mining happening, there is more pressure on agriculture because more food has to be generated to feed all these mouths that are growing. However, we are destroying the planet, and clearly this planet cannot support the 8 to 9 billion people that we expect. We're already an 8 billion population globally. Having a 9 billion population will be a huge stress. We need to start looking at economics in a significantly different manner, where growth of people and number of people should not be the basis for looking at growth. So we do know that Japan, China, Korea, they're all going into a frenzy because very few babies are getting born. And the predictions are that there will be very few Koreans in 100 years' time. There will be much lesser number of Chinese in 100 years' time. And the point is, so be it. The end goal of any human civilization is not to consume more from Mother Earth and show that there is a boilerplate number of GDP and we are growing in GDP. We have to look at prosperity with other numbers, and therefore fundamentally how we look at economics needs to change. Having said that, let's come down to even the basic brass tacks. If we keep chasing these numbers and we are saying that that we need to grow, if we don't grow in the next 38 years, then in the comity of nations, ceteris paribus, all things being equal, if we don't grow now, then when we start growing up, we'll continue to stay a poor nation. So if we don't grow up in the next 10, 20, 25 years into a high income economy, then we'll be stuck as a low income economy without ever having the opportunity to become rich.
Okay.
And that's a dangerous situation to be in.
Okay.
And to happen, we need to make sure that our population is well educated, well skilled, so that they can take up the higher order activities, which have higher productivity and higher returns on the effort that they put in.
Okay.
So those are issues that we need to keep in mind.
Okay.
Having
All
said
right. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. And therefore, these three parameters that have been put out: health, education, and infrastructure. Now, Gautam, could there be certain avenues where India is speeding ahead versus the others where much work needs to be done?
Yes, I believe we are nearing the end of the population ascendancy. You've got about 1.5 today. We peak at 1.7, and that too, according to this report, in 2062. So we've got a good couple of 20 years ahead of us, and more than that. And after that, we actually go into a decline in population. Now, in the meantime, having so many young people means that our cost of production in many areas will be less. We are already using a lot of infrastructure as a tool of growth, and we have ramped up considerably over the last 10 years, intend to continue to do so over the next 5 as well. That means logistics and infrastructure as a spur to growth. The next is modernization of agriculture. There's no getting away from it. And ways and means have to be found. If we can't swallow the entire problem whole, we're going to have to chip away at small portions of it and keep improving productivity, the mechanics that go into it, and of course yield and income from it. Manufacturing, which is already being stressed a lot. Yes, there is going to be a lot of mechanization, and at the same time, it's going to lead to a lot of higher paid jobs because of the skills involved. So if we go with all cylinders thrusting ahead, I think India has the advantage of being able to grow at a reasonable cost. I mean, if you try to do this in Europe and America, where cost of labor and cost of skilled manpower is so high that everything is extremely expensive. Today,
but it's also, that's what we're talking about. When there are skilled labor that is emigrating to all these developed nations. In fact, as per figures that are stated, United States of America has been able to maintain its replacement rate primarily because of the immigration that it allows into its country. So if you're talking about the best of the country going and settling in Europe and in America and maybe in Japan and Korea and China, because of the better job opportunities, because of the lucrative offers that they get, how do we manage to cling on and attract the top end engineers and doctors and CEOs to stay back in the country?
Well, in my opinion, Megha, the gap has narrowed considerably. People are paid much better than they used to be. There are also a lot more entrepreneurial opportunities right here in India. The West is not paved with gold anymore. There is a lot of pressure from the local population, and they don't want immigrants coming and taking all their jobs. This is what the right-wing backlash is all about. I don't think the ones who've gone and become citizens, etc., they've made their bed, they must lie in it. The others are not so happy there as they used to be. The gap between an underdeveloped India and a developed West was massive. So the opportunities simply did not exist here on the ground. But now that's not the case. And with a 7% growth rate, which is what we can bank upon, there will be more and more and more opportunities to absorb as much of this population as possible. And unskilled and semi-skilled labor is itself a great resource if you want to keep the economy going. Take this Land Rover, Range Rover that was being produced in England, and now it's going to be produced here. And straight away, they're able to drop the selling price by some 25%. And that is with a healthy profit for themselves, no doubt.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Dr. Ajay Dua, how would you like to comment? You had a contrasting view. If there is going to be a large percentage of the population which is uneducated, does not have the health services, it is instead of being advantageous for a country, going to be detrimental.
Electrical electrical disruption. That's why I had to go off earlier. I think the issue is we need to look at the most important.
Dr. Dua, I'll have to interrupt you, sir, but your internet connection is unstable, and if I could request you to go to maybe closer to your router or get into an area where you have better connectivity, would help us in being able to hear what you have to say. Coming back to Avinash Mishra. Avinash Mishra ji, how do you view this? There are schemes, like I said, schemes and policies that have already been launched by the government. Are they enough? What more needs to be done? I'll also want to point out, just yesterday, there was this video that had been made. There were 10 jobs that were in offer. This was somewhere in Gujarat, and there were at least 2,000 to 3,000 people who had gathered over there. They were pushing each other and shoving each other just to get that opportunity to give an interview and get that job.
No, actually, you see, the skilling is a big problem in our country. And as far as the Honorable Prime Minister has also laid a vision along with the target year by 2047, we need to really develop in all terms. That is for the purpose of infrastructure development, for the purpose of industrial development, manufacturing. We are quite substantially okay as far as the service sector is concerned. But I believe the example which you are quoting for Gujarat, that still the mindset and skilling which we are getting conventionally has not yet changed. So that need to be changed. The skilling is to be done on a mass scale, because we say that there are so many engineers coming out, but employable are less. Similarly, it is in the case of almost in all the sectors, whether it is professional or non-professional. So we need to really leapfrog on all these sectors.
Okay.
Coming back to the situation that it's a development process. While everybody got educated, while everybody got settled and stabilized, by the time the production population will come down, will get stabilized, and thereafter will decline. At that point of time, we will definitely require the support of all innovations, of all sorts of the computerization to really skill ourselves at that point of time, and also to have the improved health parameters to keep fit to the people to a longer age, which you can see in case of Japan, which you can also see in case of various European countries where there is no retirement age. And also in case of India, we'll find the retirement goalpost is being shifted one after the other.
Okay.
So I believe that the time is not that far. We are still developing, and our development pace needs to be faster. And it is as per rate, it is 7% growth rate, which I believe will further get expedited, and we will achieve our targets.
Okay.
And will not be a big.
Jayji, then again the conundrum, and again going to bring about the point of immigration, and that has particularly, I don't know if it has hit India, but there are more people who are looking to go abroad to run companies for foreign conglomerates. But this could drastically change, because the supply chains at this point of time are looking healthy for India. There are a number of international companies, conglomerates, behemoths who are wanting to set up plants over here, because like Gautam said, that there is cheaper labor. You can get your product manufactured in half or 1/3 of the price, sell it with larger profits. This is a win-win situation.
Yeah, I think some of the economics is suspect, but largely we are supposedly cheaper. Also, immigration is a two-way street. There is outward immigration from India. There's also a substantial immigration into India. And that's a headache that we need to manage one way or the other, because these are not trained, skilled people who are coming into India. Also, having said that, the outward immigration is not necessarily just for economic opportunities. It's also for quality of life. We have seen outward immigration happening from European countries, from Italy for that matter, into US and other places, because the quality of life offered is significantly better. You would see the city conditions in India. I mean, none of the cities are even close to being world class, even when compared to other developing countries such as Sri Lanka, where Colombo clearly is a far better capital city than Delhi is in terms of just livability, in terms of pollution levels, in terms of cleanliness, and so on and so forth. So it's not just about economic opportunities. Many people would like to stay back because their family is here, and family is still a big important point from an Indian and an Asian perspective. So that's a great reason for people to stay back, but they're not able to stay back not just because of economic reasons, but also livability reasons.
So then, do you think 40 years is enough for India to cover and to become an economy that is sustained, but also having the quality of life which is comparable to European nations?
Absolutely. You cannot have a Viksit Bharat with Vikrit cities. We need to have Viksit cities to enable Viksit Bharat. And that's important. And we really don't see much of a progress in that direction, in spite of a 10-year-old clarion call of smart cities. It is not translated into anything substantial on the ground, to put it brutally out there. Even though I was part of the initiative, I was part of the initial conceptualization reports and documents. But unfortunately, we have to call a spade, and therefore, unless we call out the problem, we cannot solve it. The other quick problem I want to bring to the table is that even though we are saying we'll be growing in terms of population for the next 38 years, we have one of the largest population of old people. If you look at the 60 plus years, we've got 140 million people in this country who are 60 plus. We need to develop infrastructure and solutions for them, which is the same infrastructure and solutions that will be needed 30 years from now when large part of the population becomes grey. And we need to start working on those technologies and solutions now, because that's what we'll be exporting to the rest of the world. And the rest of the world will soon become short of labor.
But the life expectancy in the country has also risen, and by considerable percentage.
That's right. So in the next 15 years, the population of old people, that is above 60, will grow from 10% to 20%. And that's very, very substantial. And so it is not that in 30 years' time there'll be a sudden drop and we'll have suddenly, the population drop happening.
Yes.
It's a gradual process, and we need to make sure that we have the technologies, the economics, and the policies in place to tackle such a demographic change that we're living through as we speak.
Okay. How do you respond to this, Gautam? While I made the point that, life expectancy itself has improved in the country, which means that there are proper health services that are provided, because the quality of life, if I may say, has improved because of the kind of, when per capita income, per capita expenditure increases, so does your standard of living. And then, of course, the peripheral ancillary support that is also required to sustain the people who are beyond the retirement age also is an equally important subject. At the same time, we have a population from 20 to 64 years of age, which is more than capable in handling the population and bearing the burden of the retired population in the country.
Yeah, well, look, if we are able to do as much as we are currently doing with a 4 trillion GDP economy, in 30 years' time, we will be more like 12 to 15 trillion, similar to what China is today, where I think China is at 19 trillion. We'll be there at least at 12 to 15 trillion in 30 years' time. Now, that gives you a lot of elbow room to do something about it, despite inflation. The trouble with, quality of life issues is that it doesn't cost, relatively speaking, very much in India to live very well. If you talk of just surviving in the West, inflation and cost of living is so high. I mean, you pay what, £6-8 for one cup of tea in a roadside cafe? It's ridiculous. The cost of living in Europe and America, where it used to be cheap, quite cheap relative to Europe, has gone up considerably. So it isn't just a matter of the size of the economy, it's also how much your money buys. The old PPP argument, purchase power parity, and we are very good at that right now. We are very well positioned. I have every expectation, all of these problems that come currently with lots of people who need employment and avenues of work. And later on, lots of old people, at least 10-20% old people living on and on, who need facilities in order to live a dignified last few years.
Yeah.
Now, all of this will be provided. We've got how many AIIMSs being built right now? How many colleges? How many universities? Everything has to keep on growing apace. We've been stagnant for a lot of years, you see. Possibly for 50 years, we've been near stagnant. And when we are like that, we've got a lot of pent-up demand that is being addressed at a fairly furious pace now. But yet, there is a lot of pent-up demand.
No, it is, absolutely. Because, you have an admission that you seek at an IIT or an IIM. I don't know, there are thousands and thousands that are applying and the seats are in just hundreds. Similarly, when you take a look at the NEET exams and the NET exams, there are lakhs who have applied. And there are just a handful of appointments that can be made to allow them to study in those colleges. So again, the disparity is massive. So there has to be, I don't know how fast can we do it, how faster a pace can be brought in by the government. What are the kind of policies and actionables that need to be done by the government is the number one question.
Yes, you've hit the nail on the head, Megha. It is the pace at which we reduce our bottlenecks, which are absolutely thick on the ground in any direction you see. Why are there not enough seats? Why are there not enough colleges? Why, there is no reason whatsoever apart from stagnation in the past and not enough pace at present compared to what is called for. But I have every expectation that this is going to constantly improve and ease the situation. Yeah. We have a 7% growth rate. Nobody else has it. Nobody. Therefore, we are able to do these things at a faster pace. It takes determination. It takes a less bureaucratic government. It takes political will. And it is all in place today. If this keeps on happening for the next 30 years, we have nothing at all to fear.
Okay. All right.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.